so confident they'll make the playoffs that if they don't, I'll wear a Giants or a Dodgers jersey on one of our podcasts.
You don't need the pressure of always trying to perform here at the major league level, so that might be a good thing.
You talked about the athleticism of this Padres team last time out, and he just embodies it.
Well, hello, everybody. It is time for an emergency podcast here with the BCSC, live with you on Twitter and Facebook. It's the Best Coast Sports Connection. My name's Andy Bishop, joined by my good friend Brian Vilvin. We are trying to catch our breath here, Brian, after the Padres make a couple of big moves earlier this week. They they trade for two frontline starters with Yu Darvish and Blake Snell. They add prized infielder Ha-Sung Kim from Korea. Brian, has your heart rate calmed down yet?
It's been a whirlwind, that's for sure. Just, refreshing Twitter every 10 seconds, trying to get the latest updates. And getting Snell was crazy enough. And then within 24 hours, having Kim and Darvish set to come to San Diego, it was about the craziest 36 hours you could ever imagine. After it just being so slow. December was like the slowest month ever in baseball, and the stove was incredibly cold. So, it was pretty wild. I'm still trying to catch my breath. We got a few hours here before 2021 to catch our breath.
Exactly. So we go with SD, Snell, and Darvish. And thanks again for joining me, Brian. Sneaking one more episode in here in 2020. Glad we could do it.
I know, right? Last time we signed off, we were like,
how was your holidays, man? How's New Year's looking for you?
Good, pretty low key, COVID year. So just staying home. Alyssa and I are gonna have a nice dinner tonight, open up some champagne, and instead of going out and hitting the town, we'll just hang out here and be pretty mellow. I'll take it though.
Yeah, man, love to hear it. I went to bed at 6 o'clock last night, so I'm aging not so well very quickly. I may be in bed by 8 o'clock tonight. I am seeing a couple family members for one more taco night.
Oh, nice.
In 2020. And then we'll start a new diet.
How much? What is Rob Ish coming to town or?
Oh yeah, Rob Ish has one more night in him.
Nice.
We'll go 6 tacos like I did Clevenger night when unfortunately his year ended. But yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. All right. Maybe.
But speaking of him,
to turn it around, give some good luck.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was this lingering doubt going into the offseason with our pitching here as Padres fans with the injuries to Clevenger and Lamet. Clevenger, of course, out for all of 2021. Lamet, it's still hard to know. He ended the season injured, couldn't pitch in the playoffs. So his status still a little bit in doubt, but he didn't need major surgery as of this point. So general manager A.J. Preller goes out and makes these two huge trades, one with the Tampa Bay Rays bringing in Blake Snell, and then with the trade with Darvish with the Chicago Cubs. I mean, you have these two frontline starters, which is huge going into this new year, Brian. You do give away, I think it was 6 top 20 prospects in the Padres organization. You trade away Zach Davies, who was probably your most consistent starter last year. You do lose Luis Patino, a very well-known starter for us. What's kind of your reaction with these two and what Preller did?
Going in, thinking about both of those guys, it felt like we'd have to give up a huge haul to get either of them. And the fact that we got both of them for such a small haul is just crazy to me. If you had told me at the beginning that the players we were going to send over were Luis Patino, Zach Davies, and we'd turn them into Blake Snell and Yu Darvish, I would have told you were crazy. It's going to take way more than that. It's going to take a C.J. Abrams type or even a Mackenzie Gore. You know, Ryan Weathers, some of the guys who had a lot of, big hype around them, first round guys. So to get off with Patino and Davies from the major league team, and then, a lot of really good prospects, but we still got a ton of really good prospects. And we're getting 2 Cy Young capable pitchers to anchor the top of the rotation. So I just can't believe it, especially that Cubs deal to send them 4 16-year-olds and Zach Davies for Yu Darvish and a catcher in Caratini that is, Yu Darvish's guy, but also could be a really good performer for the Pods. And to keep Campusano, to keep Adrian Morejon, it's crazy that we were able to pull this off and give up so little. Guys that maybe down the road will be factors and that it'll hurt, but, the window is open. Oh my gosh. Has the window ever been more open than it's going to be in 2021 for the Pods? I don't think so.
Yeah, not at all, Brian. And I love with Snell and Darvish, you have them under contract for 3 more years. So
Yeah.
you have Clevenger for sure in 2022 as well. So man, these next 2-3 years, I mean, this has got to be our time.
Yeah, that's
And going back to the go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, Andy, one thing, people keep talking about the Padres are going all in. Like they love to use that phrase, the Padres are all in. But the reality is we have these pitchers for the long term, for 3 years under contract. So I don't see that as all in. I see all in as you trade everything at the deadline to get one push. Like we get a guy on a 1-year rental in July to try to win that year, and that's it. This is not that. This is a long-term play. We've got so many of our core players locked up through 2023. It's crazy. So this is a long-haul deal. And so everyone who says that we're all in, sure we are, but it's not a temporary thing. It's a long-term play for the Pods. So just, man, what a time.
Absolutely. And, I think it speaks to what the ownership has done the last couple years, with Fowler and Seidler. And, of course, Peter Seidler taking over the helm from Fowler. Maybe this is a top 10 payroll team, top 15 payroll team for the foreseeable future, the next decade. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
But it's nice to see us spending. I don't know what our final payroll is going to be this year, but if it's 125 million or whatever it's going to be, if it's going to be around that figure for the next handful of years, you got to not only our chances next couple years, but going beyond that in the next decade, Brian.
Yeah, and payroll, people talk about where the revenue streams come in during COVID. But the Padres are putting together an international team. The Padres are going to be the world's team. We've got the best player from the Korean Baseball League coming over. We've got Yu Darvish, who walks on water in Japan. He is such a huge deal over there. We've got the best player maybe on earth right now in Fernando Tatis Jr., and he brings the Dominican contingent. The team is so international, and it's got to be so marketable. They're going to sell so many of those new uniforms all over the world. So in terms of money coming in, I think, look at that. That is pretty sweet, AB. I love it. But a lot of those are going to be flying off the shelves all over
road
the world.
Pinstripes.
So that's a way to bring in more money that wouldn't have existed otherwise, and especially for the Padres. They're not used to that. So yeah, they're going to be the world's team and sell a ton of merchandise. I think all these investments are going to pay for themselves.
Well, I've definitely contributed to the Padres merchandise sales this last year, throwing a few peanuts towards Manny Machado's contract. There you go.
Boom.
Brian, I went to the team store a couple days ago.
Yep.
As we're talking about merchandise here. Had to get a few shirts for my nephews, my dad, and my brother. Got the whole slew of different colors, a Slam Diego shirt, all sorts of good ones down there. So I showed you this jersey, and we've talked about this before.
Yep.
The road pinstripes. And I don't have a name or number on there. So Brian, I have to ask you on this because 18 months ago when I think we did our third podcast out of 50.
Yep.
Right before the Padres hired Jace Tingler, the manager, when his name was just surfacing, I made that joke that I would the first new jersey I would buy with the new colors would be the Tingler jersey.
Yep.
I went to the team store the other day and I saw the lady, one of the employees of the team store, ironing on the custom jersey. And this was like the day of the Snell trade. Like when it was just coming in, I was like, should I get Snell's name and number on this jersey and be like one of the first people with that on there? I don't even know if he's chosen a number or not right now. But Brian, do I go with like a Snell or a Darvish or a Machado or a Fernando Tatis? Take that temptation, or do I go with Tingler?
Well, that's tough. We've been saying for so long that you need to get Tingler, and Thomas and I are going to hold your feet to the fire on that one. We got to get the number 32 jersey. And who has that, you know? Plus, he's not going anywhere. Jace is the guy. He's going to be the one to lead us to the promised land. So that's the scary thing about getting a jersey. Like, you want to make sure it's someone who's going to stick around. I think there's no question that Jace is the guy for the long haul. It would be very unique to have it. And you did say 18 months ago you'd get a Tingler jersey. I don't remember what needed to happen, like what dominoes had to fall for you to get the Tingler jersey, but there was something. We can look through the archives and find it, but I think that would be a good one. The Snell thing, I'd hold off because, yeah, he wears number 4. That's Will Myers' uniform. So, not sure what's going to happen there. Is Snell going to buy it off him? They're both super rich, so money's not going to do it. Yeah, I don't know. I'd maybe wait. I think the Darvish one's intriguing because that's, I just love that guy. He seems so cool. But I don't know. I still think Tingler's the one. Old number 32.
All right. Here's my initial plan. I'll go Tingler with the road pinstripe.
Okay.
Since that was my commitment. I'll get a brown road jersey. Maybe go with Snell or Darvish on that one, and then the home pinstripes with Manny or Fernando.
Yeah, that's a good way to go. Right now, I've got a Fernando and I've got a Manny. The white pinstripe and the road brown. That was a gift for my birthday from my wife. A very generous one. Was the Manny Machado brown. Hard to beat.
Love it, man. Let's dig a little bit more into Darvish and Snell in particular with our starting pitching. So, of course, like Snell, there was a lot made of his World Series performance in Game 6, Rays and Dodgers, when Kevin Nash pulled him out early, according to a lot of fans and experts' opinions. He'd only thrown 73 pitches. He was 4-2 this year with a 3.24 ERA, Cy Young winner in 2018. Man, that season was ridiculous. He went 21-5 with a sub-2 ERA. I mean, incredible, 1.89. So we know that he can bring it. And Brian, when was the last time the Padres had a dominant starting left-hand pitcher?
We had
Randy Jones,
a half a season of Drew Pomeranz when he made the All-Star team.
There you go.
2016 when we hosted that. Yeah, it's been a long time. We've had some good lefties over the years, but a dominant come in and just knock them out? No, I don't know, man. It's been a long time. Sterling Hitchcock comes to mind as a really solid lefty that we had. But that was 98, That's a long time ago. It's been a while.
So, Brian, what's your take on Snell? I mean, he's proven that he can do it through 5 years to be a really consistent number 1, number 2 pitcher. What do you see from him?
I think he's the kind of guy, he's the perfect pitcher to bring in because he has a ton of experience. He's been really good for a long time. I mean, you talk about 2018, that's in the AL East that he had a sub-2 ERA. And that was a year that the Red Sox won the World Series. So they were stacked. Like, this guy is the real deal. But he's got a chip on his shoulder. He didn't get the job done. He got the job done, but they pulled him, and he feels like there's unfinished business. So that's the perfect guy to bring in. he was right there. He pitched as well as you possibly could, and you could see just the look in his face when he got pulled out. Man, that's the last taste that he's had in his mouth on a baseball field. We're going to get the best offseason he's ever had, and he's going to come in and completely dominate. I'm seeing a huge year from him this year. And he gets to pitch in front of the offense that we've got. It's lights out. I mean, he knows that if he goes out there and gives up 1 or 2 runs, he's getting a win every single time. But even if he goes out and has a rough outing, gives up 5 runs, he's still got a pretty good shot. So, gives him a lot of flexibility, a lot of leash, and man, I just can't wait to see what he can do this year. I got Snell, top 3 Cy Young Award vote getter in 2021. That's the kind of year we're going to see.
Man, I certainly hope so. I could see that as well. And speaking of top Cy Young vote earners, Yu Darvish, number 2 this year in the NL, right behind Trevor Bauer. And I mean, Brian, their numbers were right there alongside each other. Darvish easily could have taken the Cy Young this year. But you have a guy with him that has experience. Of course, he played all those years, or a handful of years with the Rangers, 4-time All-Star there. And what he did this last year, Brian, 8-3. And here's the 2 things that got me was the whip for Darvish this year. In 12 starts, I think it was. Sub-1, a .96 whip, which is outrageous.
Yep.
And then his strikeout to walk ratio, 6.64. I mean, This guy was absolutely dominant. And, he's 33, so he's maybe towards the back end of his career. But if he's able to do that at that age, man, I like what we got the next couple of years.
Yeah, when he gets better as he progresses at age, that's pretty impressive. The one concern I have with Darvish, I love the guy, and I think his personality plays. Like, he's such an easy guy to root for, and he can clearly pitch. Like, such a good pitcher. But he did pitch the entire year this last year against the Central teams. And the AL Central has some good offenses. Those teams are pretty solid, but they've also got a couple really bad offenses. And then the NL Central was not the best it's been offensively. So the fact that the shortened season was just interdivision, like the West played the West and the Central played the Central, East, gives me a little area of concern, just like how would those numbers stack up when he has to play against the Dodgers or a team like that. So that's the only little hesitation I have there. But otherwise, I mean, Trevor Bauer's numbers were against the same division. So yeah, it's hard to fault what he did. And he's been solid forever. It's not like he's been a terrible pitcher and then had one good year during a 60-game COVID season. He's been really good for a really long time. So these 2 guys are just complete studs at the top of the rotation. It's crazy. Like, that was the one area of concern. We're like, okay, who's going to fill out the rotation for the Pods this year? We're still worried about Lamet, like you said earlier. Don't know what's going to happen there. But now you've got 2 of the better pitchers in the league at the top of the rotation. If Lamet is healthy this year, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. And he's just coming into his own. So you'd have 3 guys there at the top that are unbelievable. Chris Paddock, this last year, had some struggles, but the year before that, we were looking at a guy like, oh, I wonder how many Cy Youngs this guy's going to win. Like, he's a straight shover. Mackenzie Gore hasn't even pitched for the team. Yeah, it's just crazy thinking about how deep the rotation got. And that's not even talking about 2022 when you add Clevenger. Yeah, it's a franchise-altering 36 hours. I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, so with this other piece that we add, Ha-Sung Kim from the Korean Baseball Organization.
Yep.
Really, a lot of teams wanted him. He's going to come in on a salary of maybe $5, $6, $7 million. He's a shortstop. Of course, we're pretty solid on the left side of the infield with Tatis and Machado. We don't move any other pieces. We keep Cronenworth.
Yep.
What do you think they're going to do with Kim?
It'll be interesting. And like you said, since we're signing him as a free agent, the question is what the corresponding roster moves are. Because right now, Kim would become number 41 on the 40-man roster, and you can't do that. So you either have to DFA somebody, likely a Greg Allen type, or you have to make another trade or two. So whether they do that, I'm not totally sure. I think the best play is probably to DFA Greg Allen and then try to sign him back if he clears waivers. But I think Kim is probably going to slot into second base. He wanted a deal that would guarantee that he would never get sent down, so he has to be on the roster. There's talk of both he and Cronenworth taking some reps in the outfield to see what they can do there. Basically, we have 4 shortstops on the roster in Tatis, Manny, Kim, and Cronenworth. And the shortstop is usually the best athlete on the field, so they can play other positions. That's something that we've seen the Dodgers do and do really well. They move Chris Taylor all over the field. He'll play left field, center, shortstop, just wherever you need a body with an athlete to keep his bat in the lineup. I think the biggest key is going to be whether the DH sticks around. Because if the DH sticks around, even if those guys aren't playing in the field, they can still get their at-bats. So I think we'll probably see Kim mostly at second base, maybe a little bit of left field and some DH. Cronenworth, you got to have him on the field. He'll spell Hosmer a little bit at first, play a little bit of second, maybe play, the left side of the infield every few weeks when Machado or Fernando need to get a day and they play the DH role. I don't know. I think it's a good problem to have, though, to have too many good players, too many guys that are way better than everybody else in the league, and try to figure out how to get them in. So,
yeah, I agree with you. Definitely a good problem to have. We're kind of following suit, as you said, of what the Dodgers have been doing. That's shown to be successful for them. And I like what you said about putting Cronenworth over at first from time to time if you like the matchup with him batting instead of Hosmer. And again, who knows, man? One of these guys could have an injury, one of our other infielders. So, yeah. I mean, I think the depth that you have there is huge for sure. So we add a piece to the infield, Brian. We really shore up our concerns with the starting rotation. What do you think about the bullpen? I mean, we've got a lot of guys, and we showed that we could use them all in the playoffs.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we were put into that position. But do the Padres bring back Kirby Yates? Do they try to re-sign Trevor Rosenthal? What do you think about some of these back-end concerns?
Yeah. I mean, you got to get one of those two guys, either Rosenthal or Yates. You talked about the payroll. Right now, it's probably looking closer to north of $150 million, which was kind of the number that had been thrown out. But that was before Seidler took over and probably threw away the reins and said, who cares? Let's go. I think you could probably get Yates on a cheaper deal than Rosenthal because Yates, wants to come back. He's a little bit older and has something to prove coming off his injury. And I think he wants to be here. Rosenthal could get crazy money. So I'm not sure. I'd love to have either one of them. Both of the guys seem like great clubhouse guys, interact great with the fans, and they can both pitch. So I'd be happy with either one, but we got to lock up one of the two.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. Brian, I know I am. I'm getting pumped 3 months before the season starts for some Dodgers Padres games. That should be fun.
I just wonder, I hope at some point during the year we can go back to Petco. Can you imagine what that place is going to be like when fans come back? Ugh. Because, as this stuff is happening, as the team is growing into this juggernaut, no one's there. No one can take it in. You can't see a packed house of, 45,000 people at Petco freaking out with every single move that's made. So I just hope at some point in 2021 that we can get back in there because I think this is the beginning.
Yeah, man, going to be a fun team to follow. One of the best in Major League Baseball, you got to think, for the next handful of years. We'll take a championship along with that. At least one.
Yes, sir.
Brian, any other thoughts on the Padres before we jump in and talk a little Aztecs basketball?
I'm just so stoked that we have AJ Preller. The guy is a mad scientist. I loved all the moves he made in 2015 because that was the first time, we could get really excited about the potential of the Padres. It didn't work. And then the next few years after that were rough, but you could see it starting to come together. And I'm just glad they let his leash be long enough to see his vision through. And I think he's just the best general manager we could have ever asked for. I'm so pumped up. Like, you just never feel out of anything. You feel like you're in the mix on absolutely everything because of AJ Preller. So I want to give a little love to him.
Yeah, Preller working his magic. I like that you kept pretty much your offense intact from last year.
Yep.
Slam Diego. You add the starting pitching. And as you said at the start, we really didn't lose any of the guys that are up and coming that we really want to see more of. We saw Weathers for that inning against the Dodgers. Mackenzie Gore, we think he can be, number 2, number 3 pitcher for our staff at some point. So the fact that you hang on to all those guys, really exciting.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
All right, man. Well, in other news here in San Diego, we're watching our Aztecs basketball team putting together another strong season early on here, 6-1. So since we talked last time, Brian, the Aztecs put together a very nice 25-point win against St. Mary's. And, of course, our tumultuous relationship with the AP Top 25 continues, and we essentially drop a spot after that win. It just never ceases to amaze, Brian.
No, it's so ridiculous. It just college sports and rankings, and we already talked about the college football playoff and the bowl games and all that stuff and how those rankings were absurd. And now, the Aztecs drop down to essentially 26th and then go to a neutral site game against a really good St. Mary's team that had been on an 8-game winning streak heading into that game. And the Aztecs absolutely take them apart. Win by 25. It could have been more than that. The game wasn't even close. And then they drop a spot. Like, it's crazy to me. Yeah, it's hard to fathom.
Yeah, man, it just continues to show you, kind of how we're still not totally on the radar of a lot of the voters, but that's the struggle that continues as this program continues, even after, 20 years? I think Steve Fisher started in 2001. I might be wrong on that, but somewhere around there. So anyways, man, in that game in particular, Nathan Menso with a dominant performance, 18 points, 13 rebounds. Terrell Gomez had a nice game off the bench with 13 points. And then Matt Mitchell with his 7th straight double-digit game, only 10 points, but he continues to be a solid piece for them. Brian, the Aztecs open up conference play against Colorado State, a team that's 2-0 after a series sweep against Fresno State.
Yep.
2 22-point wins against them. This, of course, was a weekend that the Aztecs were originally set to play against UNLV. That series delayed due to COVID concerns with the Runnin' Rebels. Brian, what are you looking forward to in this first conference matchup?
Well, like you said, Colorado State, on paper, they looked like they were going to be really solid this year, and on the court, they really took it to Fresno State. To win a combined, 2 games by 44 points against the same team, 2 days apart is pretty impressive. So it'll be interesting to see how the new schedule plays, playing Saturday, Monday, like playing against the same team twice, essentially. So, I don't know. It'll be really interesting. I think the Aztecs have had a long break, and I hope that helps them. They've had a couple little nicks here and there and injuries that they could sit, but they were trying to find games. Nobody wanted to play them. obviously they've seen the tape. Who would want to play the Aztecs? All it's going to do is hurt you because they were going to smoke you. But I hope that they don't come out rusty, because this Colorado State team will jump on them early if they do. And you can't find yourself down 15 like they've done the last couple of home games, the Pepperdine and BYU games. BYU, they couldn't come back. They got it all the way back to tied, but you can't have that kind of performance against Colorado State. So it's going to be really important for the Aztecs to get out to a hot start, which they don't do a ton of recently at Viejas. So normally they wait till the second half to put their push on, but they've got to do it early here on Saturday, especially in game one. Game two, we'll see how that plays out. But in game one, they've got to get out to a hot start. And I think a lot of that has to do with the version of Nathan Mensah that we see. You talked about the performance he had against St. Mary's, and if he can be the stud that he's been in a couple of games, the double-double machine with 18 points, 15 boards, he also had 6 blocks. That's a difference maker, a guy who can completely change the tone, and nobody in the Mountain West can stop him. So if he can be that dominant force, the Aztecs have a good chance to sweep Colorado State this weekend, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on the down low Aztecs, led by Mensah. One of the best bigs in college basketball. In their loss, it was I think they got out rebounded 40-26. And that's an area where I think you always need to be winning that margin. They do it pretty consistently, but if Mensah, Arop, and Tamajic can continue to own the paint, I think they'll definitely see success here against Colorado State. Brian, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you mentioned Arop's name. I'd love to see him have a big game. He's due for a big one. He's a guy who you can always count on to get some good rebounds, keep the possessions going on the offensive end, but I'd also like to see a little bit more of the dynamic version of him that we've seen in years past. Haven't seen it a ton this year. Having him get involved on the offensive end with some easy buckets down low, because the book's going to be out on everybody else, on all the shooters on the outside, I think, and they're going to be doubling Mensah. So I think there's an opportunity for Arop to get some open looks. I'd like to see him score 10, 12 points this game.
Yeah, certainly looking forward to it. Those games against Colorado State, January 2nd and 4th, Saturday and Monday coming up. Brian, man, all this talk of San Diego State basketball, San Diego State athletics, Padres baseball, quite a year that a lot of these teams had. And so that has us kind of looking back on the year as a whole. A lot of memorable times this year in 2020 amidst a rough year as a whole amongst this nation and a lot of things going on. I'll start with you, Brian. What was your best San Diego sports moment in 2020?
Man, you said it. There have been a lot of really good ones. You could go down the list, and I don't want to steal any of your thunder here, so I'm not sure where you're going with this, but you could look at the Aztecs starting out 26-0, winning the MAP and being the last undefeated team in college basketball, moving all the way up to number 4 in the rankings. You could look at Slam Diego. Again, I got the shirt repping here. A moment that just lit up, became a worldwide phenomenon. Everybody started saying it. It ended up getting, close to played out, but I still love it because it's our team. But the moment that sticks out to me as the best sports moment in San Diego this year was in Game 2 of the Wild Card Series against the Cardinals, when the Pods were down 6-2 in the 6th inning, and Fernando Tatis Jr. came up to the plate with 2 runners on, and I believe 2 outs. And he hit a 3-run homer to make it 6-5, and then Manny Machado came up, worked an at-bat, got a full count, saw a pitch to drive after fouling off a couple of pitches, and crushed a home run to tie the game at 6 apiece in the 6th inning. The Pods went on to win that game and went on to win Game 3 as well. If they don't make that comeback right there, down by 4 runs in the 6th inning, and they don't win that series, I don't know. I don't want to say the year would have been a disappointment, but can you imagine getting swept out of the playoffs by the Cardinals after the year that the Pods had had? It would have changed everything. Who knows if we even get Darvish and Snell this weekend? Like, who knows what would have happened? So that moment right there, taking the team, the offense, putting it on their back, the city going crazy, even though we couldn't be in Petco, you could hear all your neighbors screaming, and it was just, that was the defining moment for me. They went on to win that series, go on to play against the Dodgers, start that rivalry, get it heated up even more. I just loved it.
Yeah, I love that, man. Well, yeah, I'll go back to that Aztec season in 19 and 20. That was such a fun team to watch. And as you said, Brian, it was 26-0. And then right as the tournament was supposed to happen, it got canceled due to COVID. And it was so deflating. I remember you posting a video like the day of or a day later after it was announced that the tournament was going to be canceled. And it was just this letdown. But it was like such an amazing season and you wanted more. And then it was just cut short, no more. And it really sucked for those seniors like Malachi Flynn that couldn't play in that tournament. So that was rough. But you mentioned it, Brian. I have to go with Slam Diego. Not only was it like the best moment in 2020 for me, I think the 2020 Padres season was a defining moment for this franchise, right? We finally get back to the playoffs, been mired in mediocrity, to put it kindly, for several years. We get these new jerseys, this whole new look, and then Slam Diego was that exclamation point, man. Like, not only is this a new and improved team, but we got the swag, and Fernando Tatis started it with, the grand slam swinging on a 3-0 pitch. So I think like that time, those few days was such a defining moment for this Padres franchise. And I think really set them up for years to come to just really be a team that's recognized in Major League Baseball, but across all of sports as, one of the more marketable teams.
Yeah, I think we're going to look back years from now and that Tatis 3-0 grand slam to start it, and then the week that followed, I really do. I think you're spot on with that. That's going to be the moment that people look back on and say, that's when this team arrived. Everybody started taking the Padres seriously from that moment forward. And hopefully we look back, a handful of years from now and we've got World Series titles and we can look back at that moment and be like, oh, that was the beginning. And we'll wear our shirts and remember that exact moment. Not everybody has that, but we for sure do. So hopefully some great things in store in the years to follow. And we can look back at that moment as the one that kicked it all off. And it's got a cool, catchy name. You got to have a catchy name to have a moment stick,
Yeah. Well, something definitely deserved for Padres fans, Friar faithful, excuse me. So really cool to see for the folks that have stuck true to this team for years upon years. Brian, just about ending it here on the Best Coast Sports Connection. Crazy year in 2020. We're ready for a new year. Any resolutions for you, Brian?
Well, I've been thinking about this one. I don't always do like a specific New Year's resolution, but I feel like this year is a good one to do it. And for me, I try to keep things attainable, doable, simple. Not like I'm going to do 600 push-ups every day all year, because I'll do that for not even one day and then call it quits. But for me, I think I'm going to try to get 30 minutes of fresh air every day. And that might sound stupid, but I'm working from home right now. There are days where, I'll go a couple, 2, 3, 4 days without leaving my apartment. Sometimes I don't open up a window or a door. I have no interaction with the outside world except for when my wife comes home and I start bothering her. But yeah, so to go outside, we live in San Diego. You can go outside 365 days a year. I want to get 30 minutes of fresh air every single day this upcoming year. I feel like it'll be good for my mental health, for my physical health. You can see I need some color on my face anyway. Got to get outside, get a little bit of that San Diego air. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I think that's great, man. I need to do that as well. I think for me, I was actually doing it pretty good for about the first half of the year, but I need to eat a little cleaner. It's hard to say this, but I got to eat a few less tacos in 2021 because I've definitely had my share this year. I just need to start with a good few months, and then at some point, if we're ever allowed to go to games at Petco, I'll do my due diligence and contribute to the food there at Petco. But keeping it simple, just nothing crazy. Just eat cleaner than I did this last year, which shouldn't be hard, but
Yep.
that makes a difference for sure.
Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
All right, Brian, it's been fun. Another episode here, our final episode of 2020. Any last words this year, Brian?
We've made it. There were times this year when it didn't feel like 2020 would ever come to a close. And we all dreamt of getting to December 31st. And then the joke is that, the clock at midnight is going to continue on to December 31st, and it's going to be 1301 and all that kind of stuff that 2021 would never get here. But part of the world's already in 2021, so we know what happens. It was a lot of hardship for a lot of people this year. So we've gotten to this point, still a little bit further to go to get this thing contained and get back to the lives that we're used to, but it's getting closer. I'm just proud of everybody to get where we are, and nothing but green grass on the other side.
Yeah, man, let's hope so. Like you said last episode, really cool what we've been able to continue to do here with the BCSC amongst the pandemic. And I'm really excited for, trying some new things and continuing to grow this and maybe a few other projects here in San Diego. Should be a good time. And 2020 definitely toughened us up, and I think should make 2021 a little easier on us. So thanks for any of you that have listened to us here with the BCSC podcast. Brian Vilvin and Andy Bishop here. We'll see you in the new year, 2021. Take care.